The 2026 state visit to Beijing was presented to the world as a grand diplomatic success. Televised reports showed President Trump praising the deep sense of mutual respect between the two nations, while the leaders toured historic sites under a carefully maintained facade of peace. Behind the scenes, that composure was nowhere to be found. During one meeting, a swarm of Chinese journalists physically charged the room, knocking over a White House staffer and trampling them as American aides shouted in protest. The friction quickly extended to security. At this historic temple, Chinese officials blocked Secret Service agents from entering because one agent was carrying a firearm. The resulting standoff trapped the U.S. press corps in a holding room while officials engaged in a heated debate over whether the delegation could proceed. The tour ended in a total breakdown of protocol. Reporters described Chinese officials chasing the U.S. delegation across a public square as they ran to reach Trump's convoy of cars. These unscripted physical confrontations suggest a deeper shift. When diplomatic immunity and security protocols are openly ignored at a high-level summit, it signals that the United States is no longer operating from a position of uncontested dominance. For decades following the Cold War, the United States maintained a unipolar system, projecting global power with no peer competitors. That reality is now meeting a direct challenge, as Beijing constructs the strategic architecture required to rival American influence. At the center of this effort is the CRINCS Alliance, a coalition consisting of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. By pooling resources and military hardware, these nations are forming a unified geographic bloc designed to bypass Western sanctions and end American global leadership. Beijing is currently executing a two-track strategy. They are pursuing total technological autonomy at home, while aggressively wrapping their supply chains around the developing nations of the Global South to ensure economic dependency. This push for a multipolar order represents a direct threat to the U.S. economic engine. It is a system built to dismantle the established world order by creating an alternative that Washington cannot control. In 2025, this geopolitical rivalry translated into a series of catastrophic economic strikes. Both nations abandoned the pretense of cooperation and moved to cripple each other's market access. This chart shows the tariff escalation. In early 2025, the U.S. abruptly imposed a 145 percentage point tariff hike on Chinese imports. Beijing retaliated with matching tariffs, effectively severing trade across the Pacific as costs became prohibitive. China deployed its most significant leverage, controlling raw materials. This table tracks Beijing restricting exports of rare earth elements and permanent magnets. The right column notes the result. Auto plants across the U.S., Europe, and Japan were forced into temporary shutdowns. The U.S. responded by targeting China's high-tech ambitions, blocking access to AI chip design software, and imposing sanctions on foreign subsidiaries of Chinese firms. The events of 2025 ended the era of friendly competition. The leading global doctrine has been replaced by a system of mutually assured economic destruction. The 2026 Beijing summit functioned as an emergency damage control mission. The presence of top American tech billionaires alongside the president signaled just how vulnerable the U.S. supply chain remains after a year of trade warfare. The physical power play continued throughout the visit. Trump attempted to project authority through dominant handshakes and power pats, while Xi Jinping maintained a rigid, meticulous control over the state's pageantry. Beneath the signed truce, the decoupling remains active. Beijing is currently ordering its domestic firms to phase out American technology entirely, ensuring they can operate without U.S. components in the future. But the most dangerous flashpoint remains unspoken in public. This is the Taiwan Strait, where the military proximity between the mainland and the island creates a constant, high-stakes pressure point that Trump avoided discussing with reporters. In a closed-door meeting, Xi Jinping issued a chilling warning to the American delegation. He stated that any mishandling of the Taiwan question would push the entire relationship into a direct and highly dangerous clash. A fragile economic truce now masks a deepening military rivalry in the Pacific. With both nations anticipating an eventual crossing of the final red line, The central tension is which power will commit to the first strike.